Hello learner, thank you for tuning in. We are marching on with our studies in economics. Our today's lesson is a continuation from our last lesson where we introduced demand, the demand analysis. Demand analysis. We've been discussing demand, and we discussed the law of demand and the exceptions to the law of demand. Today we want to continue by looking at the demand schedule, what we call demand schedule. Some pronounce it schedule, demand schedule, okay? Demand schedule, demand schedule. So what is a demand schedule? A demand schedule is simply a table showing the quantities of a commodity that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices within a given period of time. It is a table showing the quantities of a commodity that consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices within a given period of time. Within a given period of time. It simply shows the quantity demanded of a commodity in a market at various prices in a given span of time. So remember, when you are discussing the law of demand, we say that the higher the price of a commodity, the lower the demand of that commodity, and the lower the price of a commodity, the higher the quantity of that commodity will be demanded. So a demand schedule is a table showing the quantities of a product that are demanded at different levels of price. And in computing or in determining or coming up with the demand schedule, we may have two types of demand schedules. Number one is an individual demand schedule, and number two, an aggregate demand schedule. Individual demand schedule and an aggregate demand schedule. Aggregate means the total. So what's the difference between individual demand schedule and an aggregate demand schedule? An individual demand schedule is a table showing quantity demanded of a product by an individual customer in a market at various prices in a given period. And the market demand schedule or the aggregate demand schedule is a market demand schedule showing total quantity demanded of a product by all consumers at various prices in a market in a given period. So here we are talking of one consumer, and under aggregate we are talking about all consumers in a market. So a demand schedule where the quantities for demanded for one consumer is tabulated that one is what we're referring to as an individual demand schedule. But in an aggregate or total demand schedule is where all the quantities demanded for all customers within a given market are given or tabulated or shown in a table. So that is what we are going to discuss today. That is the demand schedule. So we have said that a demand schedule can be prepared for an individual or for the entire market. So we are going to look at an illustration where the demand schedule for loaves of bread are demanded by consolata. So we have here a table of loaves of bread demanded by consolata for a period of 1 week. These are 7 days. So this is the demand schedule, which is, we have said, is a table. It's simply a table showing the quantities of commodity demanded by a customer or a consumer within a given period of time. So we are going to illustrate here demand schedule for consolata for a period of 1 week. For 1 week. So this is going to be a demand schedule. So we'll have the table. The first column is price per loaf. The price per loaf. Price, here we have the price per loaf, and this price is in shillings. Then we have the number of loaves demanded on the other, number of loaves demanded by consolata, number of loaves demanded. So these are the two main columns, two columns. So the first day of the week, the price is 30 shillings. When the price is 30 shillings, consolata bought one loaf of bread. When the price reduced to 20, consolata bought 2 loaves of bread. And at 15 shillings, that is the third day, consolata bought 4 loaves of bread. On the 4th day, the price went down to 12 shillings. She bought 6 loaves of bread. The other day, following day, at 10 shillings, consolata bought 8 loaves. She's getting, she's buying more bread. Then the other day, that is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, the price went down to 5 shillings. Consolata is here she bought 12 loaves of bread. Then on the last day, when the price for a loaf is 1 bob, you can see here she's bought 20 loaves. So consolata is obeying the law of demand. She's obeying the law of demand. We say that the higher the price, the lower the quantity of a commodity will be demanded, and vice versa. And you can see here the highest price for this loaf, for the loaf of bread here, is 30 shillings. When it is 30, which is the highest, she only bought one bread. But when this price went down to 1 bob, you can see she bought here 20 loaves. So she's obeyed the law of demand, which says that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and vice versa. So this is what we mean by demand schedule. It is simply a table that shows the quantities demanded by an individual or individuals in a market over a given period of time. So this one is a demand schedule for an individual. You can see here, this is consolata. Consolata is an individual. We can still compute the demand schedule for all customers. When that is done, we call it the aggregate demand schedule. This is an individual demand schedule. When you are computing for the whole market, we call it an aggregate or a total demand schedule. So with this, we can now proceed to what we call demand curve. With this, you can now look at the demand curve. Demand curve. What is a demand curve? What is a demand curve? A demand curve is a graph showing quantity of a product demanded at various prices in a given period. It is a graph showing quantity of a product demanded at various prices in a given period. It is a locus point of the Cartesian plane showing quantity demand of a product at various prices in a given period of time. Now, because we had mentioned that there are two types of demand schedules, then there are also two types of demand curves. That is the individual demand curve and the aggregate demand curve. The individual demand curve and the market or aggregate demand curve. So an individual demand curve shows quantity demanded by an individual consumer at various prices in a market in a given period of time. In a given period of time on a graph. And a market or aggregate demand curve shows the total quantity demanded by all consumers in a market at various prices in a given period of time on a graph. So those are two types of demand curves. Those are two types of demand curves. So we will look at an illustration of a demand curve, and we have said a demand curve is simply a graphical representation of a demand schedule. It is we've said it is a graphical representation of the demand schedule. So a demand curve, you can note here, is a graphical presentation of a demand schedule. By that we mean, if you are to draw a demand curve, in other words, it is just presenting the details of a demand schedule in a graph. So in this illustration, we are simply going to transfer this information that is in this table into a graph. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to look at that illustration. So that will be our illustration. So we are going to transfer this information to a graph. So on the y-axis, we will have the price in shillings. Then on this axis, we'll have the quantity demanded. The quantity demanded. We'll have the price and the quantity demanded. The price and the quantity demanded. So on this axis, on the y-axis, this is the y-axis, Cartesian graph, and this is the x-axis. So on this axis, we'll have quantity of loaves demanded. So here I can have my key. This is 30. So here I can have loaves. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Can have it at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Then on the y-axis, you can have 5, 10, that is 5, 10. Then can talk about 15, 20, 25, and finally 30. All right, so that you can now plot the points. When the price of a loaf of bread is 30 shillings, then the quantity demanded by Consolata will be 1 shilling. I mean 1 loaf. So when the price is 30 here, the quantity demanded is 1 loaf. This is 1. Okay, 1 loaf. When the price goes down from 30 to 20, you can see the number of loaves demanded increases. So at 20 is here. When the price goes down to 20, you can see the number of loaves here has gone up. Number of loaves, that is 2. Okay, 2. When the price reduces to 20, the number of loaves demanded by Consolata increases. The third point is 15. When the price reduces to 15 shillings, when it goes down 15 shillings, the number of loaves demanded, you can see here, it's gone down to 4. 15, 4. 15, 4. Next is 12. When the price reduces to 12, number of loaves demanded 6. So here you have 12, and 12 is here. Then we have 6. Next, 5 shillings. the price reducing to 5 shillings, Consolata is buying more bread. She's buying more bread because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can have that one goes with that. At 12 is 6. At 12, you have seen when it's 12, she bought 6 loaves. Now we are talking about 10. When the price is gone down to 10, she buys 8 loaves. At 10 shillings, she will buy more bread because it's now cheaper. This should come here. When it is 10, she's buying 8 loaves. 8 loaves. All right. When the price reduces to 5 shillings, okay, she can afford more loaves of bread. She's now buying 12. At 5, she's buying more bread, maybe for the neighbors, because these are many loaves. 12 loaves of bread. It's quite on the high side for one person, an individual, so unless you have children's home somewhere, supplying to children's home. So when it is one bob, she buys 20 loaves. That is on Sunday, okay, the last day. On Sunday, when the loaves of bread, the price goes down to 1 shilling, you can see she's bought the highest number of loaves because that is the lowest price during that week. So she buys here, so we have 1 here. So she will buy 20 loaves. She'll buy 20 loaves. All right. So that is the points on the graph. So we can now join. We can join these points and come up with a graphical presentation of a demand schedule. So we can join these points, join the points, join the points, join the points. That is it. So that is our graphical presentation of a demand schedule. That is, which is a demand curve. A demand curve is a graphical representation of a demand schedule. So what you have done here is to present the information in a demand schedule, and we said a demand schedule is simply a table indicating or showing the quantities of a commodity demanded different prices over a given period of time. So this is represented in a graph. When you represent this schedule into a graph, then you have what we call the demand schedule. And you can see it is sloping downwards. Okay, demand curve. So we have prepared a demand curve. We've looked at an example of a demand schedule, and with that we come to the end of our lesson today. We have discussed a demand schedule and a demand curve. Demand schedule and a demand curve. Thank you for attending class, and I encourage you to keep attending these lessons and make sure you go back, view the video again and again and again, because we learn through repetition and correlation. The more you repeat, the more you master. Make sure again, before we get to the next lesson, read ahead. Always be ahead. Always be ahead. Read ahead, and then things will be okay. And effort will bear fruit. Your effort will bear fruit. Your effort of sparing time to study it will bear fruit, because remember, you are gathering knowledge, and this knowledge will help you in future when you put it knowledge to application. When you apply what you are learning, then you become a very resourceful person in the society, and the society will repay, okay? The society will pay back for the effort that you are putting forth now. Thank you for now. God bless you.